Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. So now today we have the topic that is startup ecosystem, which will be looking into uh, exactly what this ecosystem consists of. Maybe uh, you people must have heard the word startup, right? But what exactly makes up a startup? What are the things we look into it when we are planning for a startup, right? So those all things will be going through, and we will be looking. I think so you will be very much excited to look into the latest startups which have been seen during this pandemic. Okay, so let's start with points, that is the outline will be startups. What is a startup ecosystem? What makes up a startup ecosystem? The history of Indian startups and Indian startup ecosystem. Okay, so now first what we'll look into is exactly what is meant by a startup. Okay, so now startup is something where more than one person, that means two people come together with a particular idea, and they place the idea and start looking into it, and start to bring the product or develop a product or a service and bring it to the market. A startup is a young company funded by one or more entrepreneurs to develop a unique product or service and bring it to the market. So nowadays you must be looking that startup has become a keyword, mainstream word, where everyone is thinking. The government has come with the initiative, many schemes regarding the startups. Okay, so what exactly is a startup ecosystem? Entrepreneurs are supported by a community of people, organizations, and other startups that surround them. This is what we refer to a startup ecosystem. Okay, so when we say startup, yeah, few people or two, three people have the idea. But now to idea to come to a product, there are certain things which together when this all things when come together, this forms a startup ecosystem. So a startup ecosystem is formed by people, startups in their various stages and various types of organization in a location, physical and or virtual, interacting as a system to create a new startup companies. So what makes a startup ecosystem? So before looking into this, I would like to play a video which you will get the glimpse what exactly startup and how the government has also initiated this startup.
India, a nation poised with the power of youth. A country with young and enterprising minds that are brimming with innovation and business ideas. Imagine the future of India if their enthusiasm gets the right vision. Imagine the development if their ideas are supported, funded and executed. Precisely why Startup India was initiated by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, a movement that infused life in more than 41,000 startups across 590 districts, covering more than 80% of the country's landscape. A total of 30 states and UTs have implemented specific policies to support startups, and the results are for everyone to see. India today has become one of the fastest growing startup ecosystems in the world. To further strengthen this ecosystem, we are now making a new beginning. Prarambh, power of enthusiasm. The idea originated during the 4th BIMSTEC summit held in Kathmandu, when the Honorable Prime Minister announced to host BIMSTEC Startup Conclave to increase connectivity among our entrepreneurs in BIMSTEC countries.
हमारे एंटरप्रेन्योर्स के बीच संपर्क और कनेक्टिविटी बढ़ाने के लिए भारत बिमस्टेक स्टार्टअप कॉन्क्लेव होस्ट करने के लिए तैयार है।
The two-day event will be graced by the Honorable Prime Minister himself. Senior leaders from all BIMSTEC nations, policymakers, industry leaders, global venture funds and thought leaders from more than 25 countries are participating. Explore the best of innovation and business acumen of more than 1,200 startups selected from India and BIMSTEC countries at the Prarambh Startup Showcase. Investors and industry leaders have fixed up more than 200 B2B meetings with startups to explore investment opportunities. Over 24 key sessions to attend for every startup enthusiast. From ideas to inspiration and planning to execution, from ease of doing business to exchanging best practices, all with one objective, that the youth of this country not just achieve their dreams, but also inspires generations to come.
देश में ऐसे प्रोडक्ट्स बने जो मेड इन इंडिया हो, मेड फॉर द वर्ल्ड हो.
That is true Prarambh. Come, join the start. Join.
So just now we have seen a video wherein the government also is trying to motivate a startup, right? So what makes a startup ecosystem? So let's see what exactly is meant by the startup ecosystem. So when we say startup ecosystem, now everyone is aware कि startup क्या है, okay? So startup is something we have the idea, and then this idea grows with more than 2 people, 3 people. They come together and then try to make that idea into a product or a service, right? But there are certain things which we need to consider, without which that idea won't grow further, right? So all these things make up a startup ecosystem. So we have the first point we have is the support organizations, big companies, universities, funding organizations, service providers, research organizations. So all this put together forms a startup ecosystem, right? So let's see one by one quickly. So startups themselves, of course, are an indispensable part of any startup ecosystem. They are the nuclei of innovation, disruption, and progress. They determine the face of local ecosystem and play an important role in the economic growth too. Now, the main role played in this ecosystem is by the colleges, universities, and other education programs. When I say main role, because the idea generation is done in this particular phase, okay? College, universities, and other education programs. So it would be hard to urge with the stance that colleges, university provide one of the most important resources for the startup ecosystem around the world. College, university, and other education institutes play a fundamental role in nurturing talent and setting the next generation of entrepreneurs and startup employees on their paths. Higher education institutions that offer entrepreneurship studies, courses on management and innovation, digital marketing programs, etc., are paving the way for bright minds to turn their ideas into reality by starting their own business or joining existing ones. So one of the key factors of ecosystem is the colleges, universities, or any education programs which help to generate the ideas which further grow as a startup. Now, next important thing is the funding providers or funding option. When we say we have an idea, we have an idea, but now in order to make this idea grow up or come into the market, right? So for all these things, we require fund, we require money. So the funding providers also forms a startup ecosystem, because this is very important phase wherein without this, the startups would not be possible, right? So now, usually the funding options or the funding providers are in three stages. Initially, friends and family, angel investors, venture capitalist, crowdfunding platforms, equity financing, debt financing, convertible debt. Okay, so actually, when we say we have a startup, so initially, suppose for example, if I have an idea and I want this idea is something where it can become a product, it will come to market, it will generate revenue, but who will believe? If I go to the funding organization directly, we need to convince them, we need to prove that, yeah, this idea can grow into a startup or come into market which will generate the revenues. So initially the first stage wherein the funds are raised are through friends and families. There are angel investors which invest in such ideas. There too we need to convince the investors that this product will generate the revenue. Okay, so there are three stages. Initially, friends and family, angel investors can be considered into this friends and families. Then we have the venture capitalist, and then we have the PE. Okay, so funding providers. If the talent is most important resource for startup, money is also the second one. Few startups survive for long without an investor or a financial institution to back them, which is why they are an essential pillar of every startup ecosystem. So just now I mentioned we have an idea, but in order to go forward, that particular idea into a product, just idea cannot go to the market and we get the product is then generating the revenue, right? So that for idea to grow into a product requires funding. So angel investors, venture capital firms, crowdfunding, loans and grants, private and government and other funding providers all have their place within an ecosystem. Next is the incubators and accelerators. Incubators and accelerators are programs that help startups succeed by providing them with mentorship, guidance, training, strategy, partnerships, R&D, and funding. They are instrumental in getting startups, especially early stage ones, for the off the ground. Having access to any accelerator resources and network can make or break a startup that hasn't cemented itself within the ecosystem. Incubators and accelerators often offer a physical space where startups can establish their offices. The programs end with a demo day where entrepreneurs can show off their pitching skills to investors and start playing on the big field. Okay, so along with just now we saw the universities, the institutions, educational institute. These are the this is one of the component which builds the ecosystem. The second we saw was the funding organization. The third very important is the incubators and accelerators. Now, incubators and accelerators is a platform where the startups or the ideas which are there, they get the space to work in, the resources to work in, so that their idea grow. Okay, now co-working space. Startups, especially in the bootstrapping stage, often don't have the funds to afford their own office space. Enter co-working spaces, shared offices where startups can rent hot desk or private offices for a fraction of price and with no long-term commitment. That means sharing of spaces. So here in this particular slide, you get the idea about the incubators, accelerators, and co-working space give early stage support. Okay, so here's the graph wherein incubators, accelerators, and the our co-working space are growing year over year. So overall infrastructure, growth rate, urban concentration. Now, along with this, we have agencies, consultants, and freelancers. So this also play an important role in the startup ecosystem. Advisory organization and mentors. Yeah, very important are the mentors also. So it's a fact startups with mentors are more likely to succeed. Advisory organization and mentors can help founders during the entrepreneurial journeys in many ways. For one, experienced, successful mentors help you stay accountable and true to your vision. Their own experience in business is often critical to your success. They can help you prepare from the future and offer unbiased opinions on the critical situations. That means advisory organization and mentors, especially, play also an important role in a startup ecosystem. Or we consider that mentors are also one of the component of the startup ecosystem. Events. Now, as we all know, when unless and until the product which needs to be um, which needs to be we can say is bring to the market, unless there is no publicity, we can't say that our product will generate the revenues. So you can so the conferences, workshops, meetups, networking events and parties are all key to building and maintaining a startup ecosystem. So events are also one of the component which build a startup ecosystem. Media and blogs. Okay, so how do we know when a startup is starting to take off? Journalists pick up the scent and its name starts turning up in the press. Okay, so in this way, media and blogs also play a very important role in the startup ecosystem. Then government supportive agencies which help to grow the startup. Research organizations, talents are also one of the components which contribute to the startup ecosystem. Now, as we have seen the components of the startup ecosystem, so basically the organization, that means the ideas where the startups are created, then the funding, right? The incubators. These are the strong pillars which build a startup ecosystem. So now let's take a look at the Indian startups, history of Indian startups. So if you go back and check the history of Indian startup, the actual startup started when TCS and Infosys came into picture. So startup culture in India began years ago with the advent of companies like TCS and Infosys. It was around 1968. Later on, uh, um, the uh, the companies were added to the startup. Okay, so if we look at present, in the last decade, the Indian startup ecosystem has seen phenomenal growth with the launch of brands like Flipkart and Zomato. Many startups in India have also been acquired by technology giants like Google and Facebook, which is evidence to the fact that startups in India are going great work. They are doing great work of pursuing the technological, pushing the technological barrier. Now, if if you look back and check the Indian history, we saw that TCS, Infosys are where the actual startup began. But it was long back in 1968 where this software companies came into picture as a startup. Right now, till 19 sorry till 20, 2016, 2016, the government mm, the government took the initiative for the startup of India, right? So then this startup word came into picture. Okay, so let's now check Indian startup ecosystem. So when we say Indian startup ecosystem, what all things mm, uh, include this Indian startup system? We have seen this pillars or the main components, right? So how this Indian startup ecosystem grew further, right? And as we move further in this particular presentation, you will find the word unicorn, which is now uh, we can say it's raining where many startups have became the unicorn. Now, the Startup India is the government of India flagship initiative to build startups and nurture innovation. Through this initiative, the government plans to empower startup ventures to boost entrepreneurship, economic growth, and employment across India. In words of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the Startup India is a revolutionary scheme that has been started to help the people who wish to start their own business. These people have ideas and capabilities, so the government will give them support to make sure they can implement the ideas and grow. Success of this scheme will eventually make India a better economy and a strong nation. So just now I mentioned till 2015-16, the startup word was little bit unseen. Yeah, there were startup, but it was little bit unseen. We can say till 2010 or something, where we can say there were not exactly, but we can say there were zero startups. But now, as we look into 2015 15 onwards, there were 15 16, there were around only four startups. Okay, so now, as and when the startup initiative was taken by the government, the startup in India, the count has added many more startups in it. So the startup ecosystem in India now, the India has the third largest startup ecosystem in the world, expected to witness year over year growth of consistent annual growth of 12 to 15%. India has about 50,000 startups in 2018, around 8,900 to 9,300 of these are technology led startup. 1,300 new tech startups were born in 2019, alone implying that there are 2-3 tech startups born every day. So now if we say every month, or the other, there are 2-3 startups. So if you look back and check, initially there was no startup, but now India has grown, and there are the the count is going on increasing. Now, indicator of growth in the startup ecosystem. So the pace of growth in the startup ecosystem has increased by 15% year over year in 2018, while the growth of number of incubators and accelerators has grown to 11%. So Bangalore has been listed within the world's 20 leading startup cities in 2019. It also ranked as one of the world's 5 fastest growing startup cities. Funding raised by Indian startups in 2019. The Indian startups have gone on to raise sizable ticket size from various global and domestic funds. The top 15 deals constituted about 40% of the total deal value, demonstrating that most funds are valuing deal quality more than quantity. Private equity deal volume in India rose from second straight year, and while the average deal size declined slightly from the prior year. So funding also has been raised in India as the startups are growing. Corporate Connect. So enterprises are realizing the disruptive potential of startups and are thus partnering, investing in them. Examples are corporate support. Facebook, in partnership with the startup, disbursed cash grants of $50,000 each to the top 5 selected startups. So in this way, the corporate connect is also adding to a startup ecosystem. Government support. The government of India is understanding the value of working with disruptive innovators across the value chain and using the innovations to improve public service delivery. Small Industries Development Bank of India has launched a scheme to provide assistance to existing small and medium businesses in need of capital for growth. So government is also adding up and promoting the government of India is finally promoting the startup ecosystem with various initiatives like Digital India, Make in India, and Startup India, with benefits like exemption from tax, funding for startups, and more. So there are certain schemes: Startup India Fund, policy reforms for startups, startup cells, National Startup Advisory Council, Atmanirbhar Bharat, AIM Crest. So more than 1,300 startups have been supported by seed funding from government states. So government is also, from the state governments. The government is also supporting the startups to grow and adding into the startup ecosystem with by generating funds so that the startups grow. So here we have the idea of we get the idea of the startup landscape in India, wherein we now know that India is the third largest startup ecosystem in the world. So we have 29 states, and UTs now have a state startup policy. Okay, so from this slide you get the idea about the landscape, startup landscape in the India. So the growth of startup ecosystem in India. So before I move on to this, I would like to play one more video. So I'll share this. 1 minute, I'll share the tab.
देश के नौजवान अब न्यू इंडिया के न्यू वेल्थ क्रिएटर्स बन रहे हैं। युवा आशा और आकांक्षाओं से धड़कते इन स्टार्टअप्स के साथ मोदी सरकार पूरी ताकत के साथ खड़ी है। आर्थिक मदद हो या टैक्स में छूट हो या फिर नियमों को सरल बनाना हो, सब कुछ किया जा रहा है। यही वजह है कि कल के स्टार्टअप्स आज के यूनिकॉर्न बन रहे हैं। देश के इन यूनिकॉर्न्स के बारे में हुरुन इंडिया फ्यूचर यूनिकॉर्न लिस्ट 2021 ने अपनी रिपोर्ट में बताया है कि 2021 में देश में हर महीने 3 स्टार्टअप यूनिकॉर्न बन गए हैं।
आज यूनिकॉर्न्स नए भारत की पहचान भी बन रहे हैं। 7-8 साल पहले भारत में 3-4 यूनिकॉर्न्स रहे होंगे। आज भारत में करीब करीब 60 यूनिकॉर्न्स हैं। इनमें से 21 यूनिकॉर्न तो बीते कुछ महीनों में ही बने हैं।
यूनिकॉर्न उन स्टार्टअप को कहते हैं जिनका मार्केट कैपिटलाइजेशन $1 अरब से अधिक हो जाता है। भारत के यूनिकॉर्न्स की कीमत अब 168 बिलियन अमेरिकन डॉलर तक पहुंच गई है, जो कि कतर की वर्तमान जीडीपी से भी ज्यादा है। भारत अब सबसे तेजी के साथ विकसित होने वाले स्टार्टअप इकोसिस्टम का हब बन गया है।
भारत के स्टार्टअप इकोसिस्टम, इसको हम पूरी दुनिया में सर्वश्रेष्ठ बनाएं। हमें इस दिशा में काम करना है, हमें रुकना नहीं है।
So just now we saw the video wherein it gave us the glimpse of the startup ecosystem, where you must have heard the word unicorn. So before going to that, we just look into the incubators and the incubator centers in India. So now when we saw the components of the startup ecosystem, we have seen incubators and accelerators also play a very important role. So I have listed few of them. So a startup incubator is a collaborative program designed keeping in mind to help new startups succeed. The main goal of a startup incubator is to help entrepreneurs grow their businesses. Mostly, startup incubators are non-profit organizations that are usually run by both public and private entities. So a few of the Indian startups I have listed, and then we go to the incubators, accelerators in Mumbai. So the first one is Center of Innovation, Incubation and Entrepreneurships, IIM Ahmedabad. Engages with ventures across tech and impact areas like energy, environment, agriculture, healthcare and affordable technology. So these are the startups funded by this IIM. INA Incubators, Indian Angel Network, startups funded, Pharmat Native Spatial. So this particular incubator sectors of investment are agriculture, e-commerce, gaming, internet, mobiles, etc. Sign Society for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. This is one of the incubators. Sign provides help to startups in the impact areas of technology-based entrepreneurship. So these are the startups which are funded by Sign. Step. This is another incubator. Science and Technology Entrepreneurship Park. The Science and Technology Entrepreneurship Park was established as an Indian startup incubator for new startup ideas in IIT Kharagpur in the year 1986. It receives financial support from the Department of Science and Technology and the National Science and Technology Entrepreneurship Development Board. Its goal is to nurture successful indigenous technologies and growth-oriented entrepreneurs enterprises. It provides space as well as seed fund to the startup. So Step Incubator is also provides fund as well as the resources for the startup. Now, here I have listed the top 21 startup incubators and accelerators in Mumbai. So from the slide, you can get to know wherein I have listed all these 21 incubators. Race Accelerator, Unlimited India, Spark, Venture Catalyst, Society for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, Amplify Asia, ISDI, Zone Startups, Z Nation Lab, Startup Bootcamp FinTech, Scale Minds, Midcon, NASCOM, Science and Technology Park, GeoNext, GenNext, Yes FinTech, Incubation Center, SP Jain Institute of Management and Research, Center for Incubation and Business Acceleration, Venture Nursery. So these are the listed top 21 incubators and accelerators present in Mumbai. Now, as we know, we have seen that today India is the third largest startup ecosystem globally with more than 15,000 startups established in 2020, up from 5,000 in 2010. The underlying enablers of this startup ecosystem include smartphone and internet penetration, cloud computing, application programming interfaces, and a national payment stack in place. So Indian startup ecosystem saw 33 startups that came under the definition of unicorn. That means in just 12 months, India produced something like 3 dozen unicorns in India. This stunning number definitely improved India's status in the world. Now, India now is ahead of UK, France, Israel, Brazil, Canada, and South Korea on the list of top startup hosting countries. So these are few listed startups of the decade 2010 to 2020. Now, unicorns of India. As of 20th January 2022, India is the home of 85 unicorns with total valuation of $287.89 billion. The year 2021 and 2020 and 2019 saw the birth of maximum number of unicorns with 44, 10 and 9 unicorns coming each year respectively. So basically, looking into this slide, I would like to play one more video wherein you will get more idea about this unicorn and the latest figure of the unicorn. 1 minute.
2021 is a year of many firsts. America elected its first woman vice president. NASA touched the sun for the first time. Space tourism finally kicked off. New games were introduced at the Olympics. We saw the first sale of an NFT this year. Likewise, India's unicorn story also witnessed many firsts in 2021. The unicorn ecosystem saw a lot of new entries, like the first health tech unicorn, Innovaxer, the first social commerce unicorn, Meesho, and the first e-pharmacy unicorn, PharmEasy. For those of you wondering what a unicorn is, it's a term from the venture capital industry, first coined by Eileen Lee, the founder of Cowboy. She used the word unicorn to refer to any startup that is valued at $1 billion or more. Do you know how many such startups made it to India's unicorn club this year? 33. India added 33 unicorns in just 12 months. $33 billion companies. This is a massive record, one that's being lauded the world over. According to data compiled by the Hurun Research Institute, India is now the third top country to be hosting unicorns. India has a total of 54 unicorns. It has displaced the United Kingdom for the third spot. The UK added 15 unicorns in 2021. India now ranks ahead of the UK, also ahead of Germany, France, Israel, Canada, Brazil, and South Korea. The United States tops this list, followed by China on the second spot and India the third. And this is just domestic data. Indians are now running a total of 119 unicorns the world over. 54 of them are in India, 65 outside the country. They're spread all over the world. There's Instacart, an on-demand delivery unicorn based in the US. Clip, a fintech unicorn based in Mexico. Improbable, a gaming unicorn based in the UK. Moglix, an e-commerce unicorn based in Singapore. Omio, an e-commerce unicorn based in Germany. All of these startups are either run by an Indian or have an Indian co-founder. Let's show you some more data. Back in India, Bengaluru is home to the highest number of unicorns. It ranks first among all Indian cities, followed by Mumbai, Pune, Thane, and Gurugram. If we speak of Indian unicorns in terms of value, Byju's leads the pack at $21 billion. The company is now in talks for a public listing in the US, which, if successful, will take its value to $48 billion. InMobi, a mobile ad tech firm, is the second most valuable unicorn in India. It has a valuation of $12 billion. And Oyo Rooms, founded by 28-year-old Ritesh Agarwal, is on the third spot with a valuation of $9.4 billion. Among the new members of India's Unicorn Club are Digit, Cred, Urban Company, Zeta, BharatPay, CoinSwitch, Kuber, Licious, MobiQuick, and MyGlam, and many others, of course. You can say it's raining unicorns in India. What triggered this boom? What led to the rise of so many unicorns? And that too during a pandemic when most businesses have collapsed. Industry experts point at three factors. Number one, a thriving digital payments ecosystem. It penetrated every aspect of life during the pandemic. A total of 44 million digital payments were recorded this year. This helped startups expand their customer base. The second factor is a larger smartphone user base. With lockdowns and work from home becoming the norm, phones became more important than ever in our lives. India's smartphone market reached a record 173 million units in 2021. That's a 14% rise in just 1 year. This made a lot of startups more accessible to Indians. And three, a digital-first business model. Almost every new startup in India is adopting the digital-first approach. It is tailored to a digital environment. It's personalized. It's technologically advanced. It prioritizes customer engagement. It relies on data-driven strategies to expand. A confluence of all of these three factors is driving India's unicorn boom. On an average, India is producing 3 unicorns a month. Reports say this figure will only grow in the coming year. Indian unicorns are showing a rare immunity against the Wuhan virus. They're proving to be resilient in the face of many economic perils. Here's hoping that their success stories further boost the Indian spirit of entrepreneurship. We all
So just now we saw the video, right, wherein you saw that during the pandemic, there was a growth in startups as well as unicorn. So as we now know what exactly is meant by a unicorn. So what is a unicorn? A unicorn is a term used in venture capital industry to describe a privately held startup company with a value of over $1 billion. Now, as you have seen the video, right? In this particular clip, we have seen that at present, monthly, there are three, at least three unicorns being added to the count, right? Now, after beyond the, or we can say the next stage, going beyond the unicorn, the global startup ecosystem is witnessing a shift as the world is increasing, realizing the potential carried by the startups. We are gradually transitioning from the age of unicorns to the age of decacorns. Now, what exactly is this decacron? A decacron is a company that has attained a valuation of more than $10 billion as of January 2022. 46 companies world over have achieved the decacron status. India has four startups, namely Flipkart, Byju's, Paytm, and Swiggy, added in the decacron. Now, these are some of the popular unicorn companies in India. We have seen the video of it. Now, lastly, what I want to add in this particular today's talk is, now we have seen, we started from the startup, we saw the ecosystem components, we saw what all facilities are given or are present by the private firms, by the government, different incubators, different fundraising organizations, and all those, right? Now, what I want students understand here is that when you say startup, it is not one day or 1 month ka work, right? You need to think, when you are in college, you need to think something different. The ideas should be generated something different than the regular ideas. See, when we say, usually you must have seen teachers saying that you should come with some innovative idea. So the point is that when we have the idea which is already existing, there won't be any market. But if there is something innovative in our concept or in our idea, then some innovation takes us to the market, which where that product can capture the market, and grow up, right? So what I like to add in this particular talk is some of the pictures I'll be showing you, wherein our college students have bagged the best prizes at various competitions. So here you can see the picture of winners at E-Yantra competition, IIT Bombay, under the category Best Algorithm Design for the project title Automatic Traffic Surveillance System, 2017-18 batch. The next we have is again winners at E-Yantra competition, IIT Bombay, under the category Best Hardware Solution for the project title Pani Puri Vending and Sev Puri Vending Machine. Okay, 2018-19. Next, we have again the winners at E-Yantra competition, IIT Bombay, under the category Most Innovative Solution Award for the project title Autonomous Shopping Bot 15-16. The year is academic year 2015-16. Next, we have again the winners at E-Yantra competition, IIT Bombay, and the category Most Innovative Solution Award for the project title Robotic Assistant for Tuberculosis Patients, 2017-18, 2016-17. So my point here is, you at the early stage need to think. So always we need to keep in mind. So instead of instead of taking a job in a company, right? Can I become um, employer instead of an employee? So you need to think something other way, out of the box, create the idea, try to find the innovation in it, and come up with some product and startup, come up with the startup. As you can see, this pani puri vending machine. So one of the team member is Mohammad Ahmed, who is a 2019 batch pass out students of electronic. He has started his own startup now. Now you can imagine, 2019 pass out batch, within a 2 years he has started his own startup. The same batch student Edison also has started the startup. Mohammad Ahmed startup is in the area of biomedical equipments, whereas Edison has started the startup in power electronics area. Okay, so the same batch pass out student. But my point here is that you need to think from the early stage. They had participated in many competitions. So as you participate in all the competitions, take part in all the events, you get the idea, you get extra knowledge, and then you come with some or the other ideas and the solutions for it. Okay, so again, my request to the students is, try to think out of the box and bring the idea in such a way that it becomes a startup. Okay, so with this, I stop. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Any questions?
Thank you, ma'am.
You're free to
Ma'am,
ask the questions.
startup is a social startup. Why would anyone help to research if it's if it's for a social cause, for in the research background, if
No,
it's
no,
causing a loss to private sector?
no. If it is causing a loss to the private sector, then there will be no point, no. But
But it's giving advantage to the public sector.
I did not get your point. It is affecting the social
If
factor.
yeah, if it's helping the people but not
Hmm.
the private sector, why would anyone help some startup to which requires a research in that particular thing which the private has right now, like that?
See, that's what the startup should be in such a way. You see, now initially, when we are coming with the startup initiative, so even the government and even the private sectors are also looking into the base that it should be of the societal benefit. Try to bring the ideas in such a way that it is for the societal benefit.
But the private is having a monopoly that we have to end. Then that's the thing
That's
that,
the barrier which you feel.
yeah, that's the main part of a idea. So, like, what should the team do then if they want a data
Hmm.
which is mostly operated by private ones, okay? And if a social cause startup which tends to give its project to government institutions is working on it, so the private won't help them if
Right,
they are
right.
causing a counter to their profits.
Right. So, my suggestion is, or what we can think is, it try to convince the private sectors in such a way that the revenue generation, whatever revenue generation will be there, will be contributed to them. So in that way, we can pressurize, or we
Actually,
can.
yeah, but Revin, they already have the 100% share. The project is like we are taking something from that 100%. Okay,
Okay.
like that.
Okay. So then there can be a question
So that's
of
the
then
problem.
that is the hurdle which you
It's
think.
yeah,
Hmm.
like my project is organ transplant, right? So most
Okay.
of the organ transplants are carried out by private hospitals because they can hire the doctors. So there is a monopoly in the market for the private hospitals in transplant. But now if I'm making a website where there is a need of time efficiency in transplanting through auto match, no one is tending to help. Why would anyone help to give a match to me? Because if I give a match to them, okay, and most of the organs would be utilized, there would be more transplant organ. Means what my project is aiming is they would be counted in their profits if there are matches, okay, because more, if the demand and supply chain is balanced, okay, the price would also reduce.
Yes, yes, right, right,
Okay, and that would be a direct loss to them.
right.
And most of the new hospitals would emerge out of it, and that too will be a loss to them.
Loss to them. Right, right, right. That's
So
what.
why would, so where would we get that research done? Yeah, we could.
Yeah.
One thing is, either we could stop at a point where we don't tend to mess with the things of them, or either if we want to make something good, we have to do something out there
Yeah.
like that. But it's related to bioinformatics that I don't have any knowledge of.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Now I'm getting your point. I got your point.
yeah,
But I feel to at my side is we need to talk to the government authorities so that some they may find or they will give us some solution regarding this. I'm getting your point. I got your point.
yeah. So
Okay.
that was my 1 year project, na.
1 year project. You're
So I
doing
was deciding to whether to continue this or whether to limit it to recommendations only and get the operators to decide like what to do and what
what to
not.
do further. Okay, okay.
Okay,
You're
like
you're a student of which class?
AIDS second year.
AID, second year. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Any more questions?
No.
Hello? Okay. If no further questions, I conclude the session. So thank